Welcome to another episode of the Conversations for Financial Professionals podcast, where we are shaping the next generation of financial advice. And today we got a two-banger, a twofer. We got both Patrick Mahoney and Skip Schweiss. To start with you, Patrick, you are the CEO of the Financial Planning Association, a very experienced CEO, business leader, and strategist with a background across diverse organizations in the financial services, technology, and mission-based sectors. You've been recognized for building and mentoring diverse teams and creating growth strategies that integrate the passion and expertise of an organization's members, volunteer leaders, and staff to meet its goals and mission. Skip, a newly minted CFP, we'll talk about that in just a little bit, currently serves as a volunteer president for the Financial Planning Association, and you've been had a distinguished financial services career of more than 30 years, including a 12-year stint with TD Ameritrade, taking their retirement plan services to more than 12,000 retirement plans and 40 billion under management. Welcome both of you to the podcast.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Great to be here, Dominique.
Yeah, man. I am so excited about talking about this subject because, you know, we always have these, projections and things about the industry, where it's going, but what better to take what I would call one of the hallmark associations for this profession, the Financial Planning Association, to talk about what the next 10 years look like or what the future looks like with all the different changes going on. So I'm really, really excited that you guys are both here. Please tell me this. How did you guys meet?
How did we meet?
Yes.
We haven't.
FPA was in need of a new CEO last year, about the middle of the year, and Patrick was introduced to us by a recruiting firm. We needed an interim CEO while we took a few months to look for our quote unquote permanent one, and a recruiting firm introduced us to Patrick, actually introduced us to 4 candidates, and I told Patrick much later that he was our third interview sequentially, and we were about 20 minutes into the interview, and I texted one of my associates and I said, "This is the guy. We don't need to do our 4th interview."
Wow.
We actually did our 4th interview, but selected Patrick to be our interim CEO for the second half of last year. And then ultimately we selected him to be our ongoing CEO starting the 1st of this year. So that's how we met.
Cool. And Patrick, you said not really met, and I guess you mean because of the pandemic.
Yeah, we've never met in person.
Wow.
Worked closely together
we have an intense relationship, but we've never met. It's you could only do this in a pandemic, but yeah. It's FPA. I took over a national organization. Denver, Colorado had instituted their Smarter Working from Home initiative. And the office was emptied out, as were all the corporate office buildings in downtown Denver. So I took over a national organization with 82 chapters and 40 employees and 18,000 members nationwide with no central office. We were dispersed to the winds. And we were doing everything via Zoom. And I mean everything via Zoom.
Yeah,
we had to recalibrate payroll processing. We had to do, how we were doing presentations and meetings. It was nuts. But the thing is, which I think is germane to what you gathered us here today, is to talk about is how everybody leveled up and met the challenge.
That is. I want to you both know Anna, and I think when we were talking, she mentioned that she has a financial planner, but they've never met in person. And I think that's a good segue to what I want to ask first is what are some of these current observations that obviously on the consumer side, right? The consumers of financial services, and especially in the case of Anna as a consumer, she doesn't need to meet with her planner in person and actually to get things going. Advisors are having to shift. What are some of the things or trends that you guys are noticing? Skip, we'll start with you. I'm curious to get your take on that.
Well, it's like Patrick referenced, and I think we would all acknowledge, suddenly about 12 months ago, we all had to adjust how we went about our lives and our businesses. And the in-person, the getting on planes and staying in hotels and driving across town to meet with clients and things like that all went out the window. And It's remarkable to me how the financial planning and investment advice communities adapted to that. I have yet to meet a planner or advisor who says, boy, I was really rocked by that change in terms of my day-to-day business a year ago. Everyone I talked to said, no, we were ready for it. We went out and got a Zoom subscription maybe, and we went on with business. And clients seem to adapt to it quite readily as well. So I think, for a year, we've all been talking about, gee, I can't wait to get back to normal, quote unquote, normal. I think there's going to be a new normal. And I think the new normal is going to be some blend of in-person and virtual, like we're looking at each other on the screen right now. I think clients are comfortable with that. I think that extends to industry conferences. FPA is contemplating that itself. We put on a hybrid, or rather a virtual conference last fall. We're looking at probably a hybrid one this fall. If people want to attend in person, they can. If they want to attend virtually, they can. And I think that could be the new normal. So I think it's actually exciting. I think you can extend a lot of content to your customers or member bases virtually now going forward, which is really more efficient. Not as good, perhaps, in terms of that human interaction, nose to nose, clinking glasses, shaking hands, hugging, all that. But sometimes efficient trumps effective.
Similar question, but just from a slightly different angle, Patrick, are you noticing the same type of feedback from clients? I don't know how often you guys, I know Financial Planning Association has a publication that's specifically geared to this industry though, but I would imagine there's some interaction on the client side as far as the feedback, if you will, from consumers. And I'm just wondering if you've heard anything.
Everything's digital. I wouldn't say everybody's happy about it. There are, in our membership organization, we vary the spectrum in terms of demographics. So those that are older tend to prefer in-person meetings or in-person interaction. They need to be coached how to do a podcast like this, for example. Mm-hmm. But then once they get the hang of it, then all of a sudden they realize, well, hey, I didn't have to get in my car. I didn't have to, as Skip said, drive across town. It's a more efficient use of my time. I think the challenge now becomes, how do you make it better? People, you look at this in your personal life and your best in class retailing experiences that you prefer in your own home. The financial planners of the future, they need to be able to provide that level of quality concierge service to their clients going forward. And those that can are going to embrace markets that's going to really zoom, pardon the pun, their businesses. And those that don't or can't or won't are going to suffer. They're going to be left behind.
I want to double click on that. I have to borrow that from Shane Parrish. I think you touch on a point that I've been hitting for a long time. I'll throw a little tangent out there that you guys can pick up or not, but I, for the longest, have been, advising and coaching existing financial advisors. And when I look at their catalog of stuff, I'm like, where's video? Like, are you on video? Like, are you doing any video? And they're, oh, no, I don't really want to do video. I'm like, dude, come on now. One anecdote I have is that my wife, this is 4 or 5 years ago when I first started my firm. She was like, so let me get this straight. You're trying to get people to trust you with their money, but you're not showing your face. And I was like, oh, okay, good point. So all that to say, this advisor, this skill set, this mentality that you mentioned, Patrick, about people, the consumer of financial services is changing their behavior, the way that they get information. What place do you see us having in their lives with the way that everything, Amazon Prime and grocery delivery and all this other kind of stuff? Like where is this going? I guess is my question.
Where it's going is the convergence of personal technology that benefits your life and the way you live it with how you manage your financial transactions, where that intersection is going to be. And that's going to keep moving on the spectrum to speed and convenience and utility. My wife and I just completed our tax returns for 2020 last week. And my entire life, I would meet with our CPA in person. We'd go through all the documents. I'd drop off our W-2s and all that jazz. And then over the last couple of years, I would upload things, or I would set up they could download it from my employer if they wanted to. But this year, because we weren't able to meet, it was on a Zoom meeting just like this, but it was secure. And there was a secure platform where she walked us through our return, clicked through all the forms. We signed everything digitally, and it was filed with the IRS. The only thing that we had to do in writing was we had to send over a notarized document. They could use our signatures, but that was it. And that meeting was over and done in 35 minutes.
Wow.
Now, and it's, and our return is probably a little bit more complicated, but the point was, it was easy, it was convenient, it was accurate, and it was reliable. You have that same expectation of your home appliances. You open the refrigerator door, you expect the light to be on and the food to be cold. Period. It's that simple. And that's the expectation that people have of their iPhones, of their GPS navigations in their cars. And that's the same level of convenience and expectation they're going to have of the technology, of the fintech stack products that a financial planner uses to help me manage my financial life.
Yeah. Skip, do you see the industry vendors and suppliers of these tools? Like Zoom is technically not a financial services industry, although everybody in financial services is using Zoom, right? So we do have these somewhat agnostic, if you will, vendors, generic vendors. But I don't want to name any names, but the financial planning software guys and gals out there in those firms, do you see them moving along this spectrum as quickly? I'm curious. I know I have my own tech stack, but I'm always in these discovery or these platforms where people are asking, hey, what's the best tool for this?
Yeah, I think so. I was just reviewing a Journal of Financial Planning article that FPA put out recently, talking about all they interviewed a bunch of planners on, how has your tech helped you get through this, and what tech applications do you use? And it just seemed like most planners, again, were pretty well prepared for this, and they might have picked up one or two additional applications to help them get through it. So I think the tech universe out there is really well prepared to support planners and advisors today. Of course, as Patrick said, it's going to have to continue to evolve. I'm going to want my financial planning to come to me in person or virtually, however it suits me at that moment, to be on demand whenever I have a question, to notify me proactively, let's say with an email like, hey, it's time to review your estate plan, or, have you completed your life insurance, you needed more life insurance, whatever it is, to prompt me like that. So I think some more tools like that, and they probably exist, but to help planners nudge their clients, to keep them apprised of changes and updates, and hey, have you done this thing we talked about at our last meeting, will help as well. Just as we were talking a couple of minutes ago, I got one of these emails, hey, your Amazon order has been delivered. That's the kind of thing I think,
Yeah.
Hey, your estate plan has been completed. It's attached. You can go to your vault and access it, something like that. So we're going to continue to evolve, and it's going to be great, I think.
But the quality control, Dominique, is going to be the challenge. I had somebody last week who wanted to meet, and at the bottom of his email, it had a Calendly link. So Calendly is that app that you can use to get on someone's calendar, and then they call you back. So this guy had chased me for well over 2 or 3 weeks at this point, and I was just too busy. I finally got around to it. I clicked on his Calendly thing, and I made an appointment for yesterday morning at 7:30 a.m. I'm an early riser. My phone rang at 7:30. It was him. He had no idea who I was or why I had called, and didn't remember reaching out to me at all. So you can have all the technology that you want, but if you're not following through, man, and managing this proactively, it's not going to fly.
No, that's a great point about integration. So the tools are there, yes, but at the same point, we can't have the process that's broken on the back end of that. Yep. I think that's a really good point. I just wonder too, as we're kind of thinking about the next 10 years or so in this industry, and I have an aspiring financial professional that's listening to this podcast, and they're like, well, what are some of the tools or skills I need to be building to merge with or marry with where you guys are saying the industry's going, what would be some things on that list that you would start to tell them to build out, Patrick?
You'd want to build out a skill set managing software that's privacy compliant, for obvious reasons. You'd want to be at the master class of video profiling and video interviewing. You'd want to have a tech stack at your fingertips that can integrate different applications at the same time. That can, for example, workflow plans, financial integration plans, how you integrate those in with the different functions that you're trying to do. And you have to convey an aura of seamlessness and time efficiency. It should be just flow like butter and easy to understand. And those organizations that build those stacks, that's who's going to drive this. The people that learn how to understand and work those stacks, those are the folks that are going to be really, really successful. If I were going to be a financial planner and coming into my own in the next 10 years doing so, that's what I would embrace.
Yeah. Skip, would you add to that list?
I would add to that list. So we've been talking quite a bit about technology, and I agree with everything Patrick just described as to what the firm or the planner or advisor of the future is going to need to look like. But I would add to that the human element. I think for probably far too long, for decades, when a client or prospect approaches us, we say, well, tell us about your portfolio or your investments. I think in the future, what a lot of people are going to want more is, what are you trying to accomplish with your life and with your money? Are you trying to go back to graduate school? Are you trying to retire early? Are you trying to make sure you fund your favorite charities? Do you want to take this particular big vacation? Okay, now let's talk about, now that I know you as a person better and what you're trying to accomplish with your life, let's talk about how your money can enable those things. And I feel like that kind of approach, I know if I were I am a consumer, but as a consumer, I would value that a lot more than the first question being, where's your money? Or how much money do you have? Or how are you investing your money?
I think you touch on a really good point. In our earlier conversation, I referenced a conversation that I had with Bob Viris, and he really simplified it. And I thought this was great. I've even started to implement it in my practice, but it's like, have a list of like 30 goals that you either work through with the client, but ideally they probably work them through with, whoever's significant in their life, their spouse, whatever. And they come up with this list, and the list needs to have a broad spectrum of things. It's not just finances. It may be stuff like, I need to spend more time with my kids, or I need to work out, or whatever, to lose this weight. So I'll be around to spend the money that I'm saving for, this retirement I'm saving for. But the point is we then become somewhat of a accountability partner to them to reach these goals. And he was like, if you do that well, you'll be hired forever. Those clients will be yours forever, because you're helping them reach these landmarks that, to your point, Skip, that's the whole reason that we save and invest, right? Is so we can do all these things.
So we can have a life.
I like that phrase, accountability partner. That's a very apt way to describe it.
Yeah, a coach.
Yeah.
Well, I would say, some aspects, and this is somewhat of a tangent, but I think you guys would be really, really good to answer this. We're all seasoned with our either our age or our facial hair or something like that. I was just telling somebody the other day, I was like, I think some of the best advice recommendations I've given to my clients is from the fact that I've been married 23 years and I have 3 adult children. Sympathy aside and all that other kind of stuff, that it's really from a life experience. But to that point, to that end, I think when we talk about accountability, this is a term that I know my peers in some instances, they're not really comfortable with. They're like, hey, I'm here to do this. I'm not really trying to coach people through. I want, either one of you, or maybe even both, to talk about like the role of an advisor that's kind of changed. Like, we are coaches, whether we're formally trained as coaches or not, we are essentially helping people change behaviors for their good so that they can reach a lot of the goals that they come to us with.
Yeah, and I can say from personal experience, when I meet with my financial advisor, we probably, if it's an hour meeting, we probably spend 45 minutes talking about life and family. and 15 talking about markets and portfolio. And frankly, I appreciate that. I get the reports. I follow markets. I know what markets are doing. I know how the portfolio is faring. I don't need to spend an hour talking about the portfolio, but I love spending in 45 minutes of that talking about my family, my kids, what's going on with my kids, what's going on with my elderly mother, how's she doing, how are all those parts fit together in terms of my goals in life. So I think it's going to evolve in that direction. That's why I think that's going to be an important skill.
And creating that environment where you can have that kind of trusting conversation, that's really important, and that's where integrity comes into play. You can't have accountability unless you're conveying integrity in both directions at the same time. No, but I mean, Skip's right. I mean, talking to somebody like me, I got an aging mother who's about to go into a nursing home, and I got 4 kids out of school, but I still worry about them because they're not financially settled yet. And how do we manage our own affairs at this stage of my life and career? These are the kind of confidential, might be the wrong word, but the trusting conversations you want to have someone to help you think things through in an objective fashion.
No, I have
that
2
comes
points.
down to trust.
No, I have 2 points on that. I think you are hitting the nail on the head with a skill set that is so much on the EQ and not the IQ side. I've gone through a lot of different curricula, and I don't see any of that stuff in there. It will tell you how I often tell advisors, I was like, CFP is great. Don't get me wrong. I have my own, but it's never going to prepare you for the first time you hear that somebody's getting divorced or somebody died. And when you get that phone call, that's a different skill set. But to that point, how do advisors develop that ability to create that space that you said for creating that trust and I guess allowing that conversation to germinate? Do you have any tips on that?
Well, it starts with being emotionally intelligent or emotionally aware. Some people are socially aware enough to realize that they have that skill set. They're inclined to those kinds of conversations. They're trusting people who have discernment. But also, if you don't have that, but you have the desire to it, there's certainly there's training you can undergo, you can take, but it really you have to be willing to be vulnerable. I can't get you to be open to me unless I'm open to you to share. And that means, and that's how you build trust. And if you build trust, then you can get to accountability. But it all starts at the beginning. It starts with trust, discernment, responsibility, and then accountability.
Yeah, you mentioned Mr. Viras, and he and I go way back. I feel like we've kind of grown up together for decades in this industry. He's talked a lot about this or written a lot about this. And part of it is asking questions and then just shutting up and listening. I mean, to me, that's sort of EQ 101 or relationships 101. I think in the distant past, a lot of advisors would try to impress the client or prospect with how much they knew. I have these degrees and I have these certifications, and here's how we manage portfolios, and aren't I smart, and you should hire me. I think that's the way of the past, as we've been talking here. You mentioned having adult children. I have 3 adult children. I don't think they're going to drive across town. They all 3 live in different urban areas. I don't think they're going to drive across the city and walk into the office of a financial planner, probably, and be told how they should be managing their money. I think it's going to be on a screen. I think it's going to be more about, if you understand me better as a person, then you're going to be better equipped to help me use my money to achieve my life goals. Somewhere in there's a line, though, and Bob has talked about this, that listening is one thing, and having empathy, showing empathy, and really learning about the client and building trust is one thing. You might get to that point in a conversation where it's, whoa, this is over my head. I'm not a psychotherapist. I might need to refer you to somebody, or I might need to bring someone onto my staff in my firm to help with those kinds of things, because you talked about it. The first time you get a client call that, hey, I'm getting divorced, someone in my family died, this is going to impact me and my life and my finances. Are you equipped to handle that?
No, I think you bring up a lot of good points. I think the starting point, though, for someone, on the outside looking in, because these are some, super high level and potentially complex things that we're talking about. And they're like, well, how do I get started? I think if you show up being vulnerable and willing to just, you're genuinely there. You're present in the moment. You're asking them questions. You're genuinely curious about who Patrick is or who Skip is when you're sitting across the table, besides just their portfolio. I think that's a great start with being vulnerable. I want to pivot as we bring this thing in for a landing. This has been really great. Let's talk about some of the tools that maybe are inside of your association, the Financial Planning Association, to help these aspiring financial professionals. I know there's one big one. You guys are probably going to mention it, but the externship that was huge last year. I had a lot of great feedback, a lot of people in my community that participated in it, and things of that nature. But I'll let you guys kind of take the reins there on what you got coming up, or tools, evergreen tools.
Well, we're about to launch the Externship 2.0, and that's gonna get going here pretty soon. And that's all about, in another year of a pandemic, when younger people can't travel to larger cities for externships, or their budgets are being cut back. This is an opportunity to do that in a virtual environment. It's a wonderful experience. It gives them exposure to FPA as junior members. They get to touch and feel what it's like to belong to a membership association, and at the same time, work on projects that are concrete and life specific to their educational requirements at the time. So that's going to go really, really well. We're augmenting a lot of our learning capabilities in our learning platforms, and I'll have more on that in a couple of weeks to announce. And I think things are going to go pretty well.
And our next gen community is really vibrant. It's just a great way for people. And you said it, I don't remember if we were on air or before we came on air, but when we talk about next gen, we're not just talking about somebody in their 20s just coming out of a college program. We're talking about somebody who's entering the profession. Could be a career changer. I think you talked to us about someone who contacted you who spent 30 years at the Postal Service and asking you, is it too late for me to become a financial planner? I think that's fabulous. We all know, we on this screen know this is such a great profession. And, whether it's a mom going back into the workforce after raising her kids, maybe it's a soldier transitioning to civilian life. Lots of different types of profiles fit that next gen. And we've got a really vibrant community at FPA around next gen. They have a lot of activities and a lot of people you can lean on in that community to help you, especially in the early days and years of your entry into the financial planning profession.
No, that's great. I'm really excited to hear that. I think, one of the things, and the reason why I even created Jumpstart and started this community for aspiring financial professionals is because I was looking at the industry and I was like, okay, there's a lot of money and marketing dollars on getting people in these client-facing positions, and everybody, let's just face it, are not salespeople. That just cannot happen. And what I'm finding is this thought, and it's not just a demographic of age, it's a mindset of people don't want to be representing a firm that does not represent what they believe in. Like, people are past that. They don't want to do that anymore. And so they look to this profession and they're like, how can I help? How can I give back? How can I get people to hear my story that, I did this one thing and now I'm being successful. They want to share that. So I think some of the opportunities you named are excellent opportunities for people to get involved, get their feet wet, understand what this industry is about, without the pressure of having to meet a quota or sell X amount of life insurance this month in order to stay around. So that's great.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think that's how most, if you talk to a financial planner today who's, let's say, more senior, got gray in their beard like I do, or, follically challenged up here, they probably entered the industry selling insurance or investments through a brokerage firm, something like that. And they don't recall those days very fondly, typically. And when they really discovered the more holistic financial planning approach, that's when they really found themselves. And you're absolutely right. The next generation coming into this profession, they're not about, I'm going to do work I hate for a few years and pay my dues with a firm I might not have a lot of respect for. They're just not about that, which I think is great. But we need to do a better job collectively, and you're doing great work in letting more people know this is such an amazing profession, and it's not about meeting a quota. It doesn't have to be about meeting a quota. It means helping people, showing people different ways of handling their money to help them with their life, rather than you need to sell so much insurance or investments or financial plans this month.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Well, this, as you guys know, is a podcast to help empower tomorrow's financial professional with the tools that will take that client relationship to the next level. With that thought, I'm going to let you go first, Patrick. Do you have any word or words of wisdom for that next generation planner?
One of the things that you want to think about when you're in your early 20s, thinking about what you want to do with the rest of your life, is how the impact that you want to make on society and your family. And the life of a financial planner is really being part of a helping profession. And if that's important to you, you can join the ranks of people that have come before you and people that will be working shoulder to shoulder with you, but leveraging existing technology highly relevant to your generation and the generation that comes after you. So it's all about leveraging your desire to help at the intersection of your desire to leverage technology in a space where you can make a real impact on other people's lives.
Mm. What about you, Skip?
I would also say that there are a lot of different career paths within financial planning. So I was speaking just the other day with a pretty large financial planning firm, and they bring a lot of young planners into their firm, and they discover once they get to work with them for a while that some people will gravitate toward operations. Some people will gravitate toward client service. Some people will gravitate toward developing and managing the financial plan. Some people will gravitate toward business development. Or toward the investment side. So there are a lot of different fields within the profession of financial planning, but get into it. It's such a great profession. Figure out your niche, what really turns you on, and go for it.
No, I love that you said that. I've actually created some trainings around the fact that don't always, think that because you're going to be a financial planner, financial advisor, financial professional, that's just going to be client facing, because that's not it for everybody. But there are some support roles to that lead advisor, if you will, that are very instrumental. So I'm so happy you said that. And this has been great, guys. I was a little worried, just to be honest, about how we would get all these three minds in here to get it inside the time period. But I think we executed on this pretty well. I appreciate you guys.
Well done, sir.
Thank you.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Skip, for stopping by. And we look forward to partnering with you guys in the future.
Absolutely.
Very good. Thanks a lot, Dominique. All right. Bye-bye.